This podcast is brought to you by Penji. Penji is a creative subscription service that gives you access to pre-vetted, agency-trained creatives from all over the world. From graphic design to illustrations to social media management and web development, it's all included for one monthly price. It's time to say goodbye to the hassle of searching for top-notch creative talent. With Penji, you get quality and consistency delivered right to your inbox every day. Carefully crafted for you by humans, so meet your new creative team today. Head over to penji.co for more and enter the coupon code located within the podcast show notes.
Okay, everybody, hello and welcome to the Fully Managed Podcast. This is where we talk about marketing and business tips to assist you guys in your business journeys. I'm your host, Daniela, and I'm Penji's Partnership Coordinator. And you know what we do here. We help you guys out. We have a really cool guest today, Bobby Gillespie. I'm actually not sure how to pronounce your last name.
Gillespie.
Wow. It was so off. That was terrible.
It's all right. That's why everyone calls me Bobby G.
Bobby G from Proper. Hi, Bobby. I'm so excited to have you here today.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. I have a great podcast planned for today. But before we get started, get the ball rolling, I wanted to get you to introduce yourself, like tell us all about you and what we got to know.
Sure. So I'm many things. For the past 9.5 years, I owned a brand strategy and creative agency. And for the past year, I've pivoted away from that. And I'm primarily advising CEOs around brand strategy and creative direction. So CEOs hire me primarily in the tech industry, not necessarily B2B, but in the tech is kind of my jam. They hire me because they know brand strategy and creative direction is a leadership function, not a marketing activity. So getting kind of elevating myself to where I best fit, sitting next to the CEO, making sure that their vision becomes a reality is really kind of where I'm best utilized.
Interesting. And when did you actually start with this whole journey of, having the agency and doing this whole thing?
I started my own thing in 2014.
So you've been doing this for about 11 years?
Yeah, well, 10.5, 9.5 as an agency, 1 as just me.
Okay, cool. Then I love talking to people who have been sort of in the space for a long time because I feel like you've been able to sort of see a lot of changes, see a lot of involvement. When I was doing research on Proper and what you guys did, I noticed that you talk a lot about being brand first. Can you actually break down what that means in practice when it comes to being sort of oriented with that idea?
So marketing has a tendency to use nebulous definitions for words, and brand is one of those. Everyone defines brand a different way, but the way I define it is to make it practical. Is brand equals reputation. So all the things you're doing, all the things you're putting out there. All your messaging, how you're dealing with clients, how you're dealing with people, how you're dealing with your community, all those things are part of your reputation. So being brand first is like, okay, what do we aspire to be? What do we want to be known for? What are those things that we want people to recall of the problems we solve? All those things are not necessarily just important for direction, but it also empowers everybody in the organization to understand what we're trying to accomplish and really gives leadership the ability to unify everybody on a common goal, common mission. And when everybody knows what the goal is and how their contribution contributes to the success of the organization or the success of the clients, then we have a really powerful team that can do a lot of great things. So starting with understanding sort of the aspiration, it's not necessarily perception of reality, but it's aspirational. It's always aspirational. So you always have to earn it. You always have to work towards it and optimize for it. But clarifying that what it is that common goal is being brand first.
I think with like everything that I guess how brands manage themselves nowadays, um being able to stay, authentic is
Mm,
also a very coveted thing. How do you actually help with brands, with this whole brand first mindset? How do you actually help a brand keep authenticity without having it just be something that they say, but actually that they have to do? And also, keep the customer interested and also being real to what said brand wants to communicate. I think it's such a so many things to want to balance. How do you actually do that?
you have to. So you have to really start with your core values. And a lot of times that can be cliche. And like you said, brands will like say one thing and then do another because of money. And, you have to really commit to long-term thinking, not short-term decision making. And the short-term stuff is like you'll do anything for money for here and now, despite the damage it could potentially deliver to your brand long term. So when you're thinking long term, like, okay, what are our core values? And like to take it to another level, it's like, what do you give a shit about? What's important to you? Like what's non-negotiable? What's imperative? What's mandatory? And it's only a couple things, right? And you can't waver from that. Like I said, it's all aspirational. So the minute you make a decision that conflicts with your core values are kind of worthless. Or the way you let an employee kind of do their own thing because they're making you money, or you you invest in something that is kind of conflicts with those values. So you don't really have anything because you just have stuff. You're just talking and that's meaningless. So there's nothing real about that. Like if you're trying to keep it real, you start with what do we give a shit about? And then really talking to your customers and identifying what they give a shit about. And that where those two things overlap is your opportunity for that relationship. And where that relationship opportunity is, that's where you make your promise and you uphold that promise. And if you do something that like you know, you didn't uphold that promise for whatever reason, then you got to own it, right? Like the brands aren't infallible. Brands make mistakes. Like if you really are true to yourself and true to your values, then you just own those things as well as you own who you are. And the benefit is is obvious, right? Because when you are your authentic self, you don't have any competition. Who can compete with you on being you? And that scales to brands at any size, down to the individual personal brand, if you want to explore that. So like be you, lean in on you. And that personality, that vibe is going to be magnetic to the right folks. And so if you lean in on your vibe and your personality, they're going to be like consumers and people are going to be like, I like them. I appreciate what they do. They're thinking this, they're feeling it. And then when you kind of couple in with your IP translates to the value you bring your customers, then you have a true differentiation instead of just word service or just, the next marketing kind of jargon or gimmick. It's real stuff. So when taking it to market, like everyone kind of is unified under that. Like this is what's important to us. So when you have that clarity, it builds a lot of confidence because everybody makes consistently good decisions as for what's best for the brand and the future customer. And that's what we want.
What I'm curious to that I think the like what you say makes a lot of sense. And I do think that staying true to yourself is going to be easy in the sense that nobody can really compete with that, like you said. But I am curious to see how that because I've noticed a lot of brands kind of lose themselves once it starts to grow, once they start to grow precisely because they start adding more players. They start
Hmm.
to have like especially with I think like product-based brands. What I've noticed is that when you start sort of like expanding your distribution, right? Like the whole thing, then it starts to, the branding of the product starts to get lost because the people who started it are already, they're busy, they're wearing too many hats, they have to start
Yeah.
offloading into other people. They start getting involved with agencies, they start getting involved with other people, they start working with people from outside, and then they start getting all of these ideas, I think they sort of lose sight of that.
Yeah, it happens all the time.
Yeah. How can you help someone when they're sort of like going, that process is going through? Because I feel like we always see sort of people talking about how the second that brands grow, they're not authentic anymore. I think it's just hard to keep that sort of homey vibe if you're going to be doing like a multi-billion-dollar company. It's impossible to sort of have that. That's my opinion, but I don't know.
Not
I'm curious.
impossible. It's not important to some companies. So at some point, the companies that you're probably thinking of, it revenue became their core value, money, making money. So they
Yeah.
exist only to make money. So like the original vision and values of the company have been thrown away for infinite growth. So like you can't look at those companies as an example of anything other than what you probably don't want to do. Uh, if it is important to you to establish a legacy for a business, and there are businesses out there that have been around for a long time, have stayed true to their core values as well as their sort of area of expertise. So, for example, um, Nokia, right? Nokia has been around since like the early 1900s. They were a communication business involved in, I believe it was mining in the UK. So they looked at their area of expertise. They said, okay, we do communications between individuals and organizations. They evolved over time to like back in the day, the first cell phones were Nokia. Everyone had a Nokia cell phone, right? And then the market shifted. And so they pivoted along the way. And now what they're doing is mega telecom infrastructure. And they're putting like Wi-Fi on the moon for when people actually spend more time on the moon again.
Oh
So
yeah.
like they've just evolved. And that's the key. Like setting your brand standards, whether it's design or positioning or messaging, that has to constantly evolve. It's not like we set our brand, this is going to stick with us forever. Now, if you do it really, really well, like thinking of like branding, the design aspect of it, like IBM comes to mind and like Apple, but Apple's evolves, but like they're generally kind of the same visual brand, except for kind of a slight evolution over time. Like you think about them, you think about sort of what their purpose is. You think about how long ago their identities were designed and they're still used today. Doesn't that set a standard that other companies should strive for? Other than like changing the identity every few years or like, I feel that like, like it's not that easy because like when IBM set their design standards, it was like, I don't know, the 50s and 60s. They already existed for a while. So like they had budget to do it. Same thing with Apple. They had budget to do it. And, so it's like you can't say that like I'm starting a company or I have a $10 million company and we aspire to be, a unicorn. Like our identity right now needs to be the one we have when we're a unicorn. That's not how it should work. That no one should have that mindset. They should have the mindset of like, what is good enough for us now? What's the bar for us now? Because most brands, and this is a lot of what I get hired to do, the brand they won with before will not allow them to win the next stage of their corporate life cycle. So when they're sensing those like, this doesn't feel right anymore, then that's definitely time for a conversation. But true brands that are strong and built to scale and sustain, they have indicators that they've identified so that they know before it's too late. They know before it's like, oh, we need a rebrand. Like if you say like we need a rebrand, you're well past the time that conversation should have happened. So like most brands won't sit down and compose their values. But the legacy brands that establish a reputation and maintain that reputation for like generations or more, that lasted more than 10 years, like they're sustaining on those original values, but the rest of the brand can evolve with that.
Do you think that staying sort of like true to values and keeping that, like you said, you mentioned how like the brand that brought them to a certain stage is not what's going to help them win, right? In the next
Mhm.
corporate cycle.
Yep.
Do you think that if a brand, 'cause I think that there are two conflicting ideals, right? Of like every brand, I think every company wants their company to make more money and grow. That is every business's ultimate goal. Um, but at the same time,
Mostly.
you want your business to be really good and like,
Mhm.
awesome and stuff. But the point of them, like end goal is to make the money out of it, right? So how can you kind of marry these two ideals? Especially if because I think I see that. I used to work in a company where like the marketing and sales team are always at odds because the marketing team wanted to do something that was going to be really great for branding but was probably not going to drive sales from like the get. And it was more for like brand awareness, like the purposes of that. And then the sales team would always kind of push back because they were like, we're really trying to get X amount of things sold by the end of this quarter. And you doing these marketing efforts is not going to help that. And we need marketing to push these sales. And like, there was not enough budget. And then these sort of like standstills were happening of these two ideas that were so conflicting and then not being able to put them into one cohesive sort of decision process.
Yep.
How can you sort of help with like what can a brand do in that situation where I think like they want to stay true to themselves, they want to do these things, but they also want money.
Well, you have to have goals that are based in reality. So like growing market share by more than 1% a year is basically impossible. So like if you have clear business goals, right? Like sales shouldn't have their own goals, marketing shouldn't have their own goals. There should be one clear business goal. We want to grow market share by 1% this year. Or we want to defend market share. We don't want to let our competition take anything that we got. It could be both at some point. So like having one clear goal and then somebody like particularly me, I come in and like I'm not on marketing, I'm not on sales, I'm not on product, I'm not on operations. I'm like next to the CEO and I speak for that. That's not necessarily the CEO, but I speak for the company. And so having somebody who is unbiased, um, sort of unflappable and like very determined to do what's best for the brand and the future customer, then you could unify those teams. The dysfunction between marketing and sales is like an epidemic. Most marketing and salespeople are pointing fingers at each other and saying it's their fault.
Yeah.
And they're not even communicating. But I talk with business leaders, I talk with sales leaders, I talk with marketing leaders, and the ones that are the most successful all say the same thing. Communication between marketing and sales, shared goal, shared risk, shared reward is the reason we're successful the way we are. And so like having sales and marketing not on the same team, like that is the same team, just different sides of the ball. They're both trying to win the game. So if the defense is saying we can't win because the offense sucks and vice versa, well, then you're just completely dysfunctional. So you probably don't have the right leadership in place because the people aren't understanding how their role and responsibility contributes to the success. So if marketing wants to say like, okay, we want to be brand focused, if that's not coming from the senior executives, then where's it coming from? And if Sal says we need leads now, then clearly they don't understand the power of brand awareness.
Yeah.
It just truly just not understanding how business operates because they have their own goals that are in conflict with, they're not in unison. And like when you say like, okay, we're trying to grow market share by 1% this year, which translates into, you know, $500,000 in new business. Like the question should be like, okay, how do we create opportunities now? And how do we create opportunities later? And that big picture thinking is going to say like, okay, we need to do brand awareness, obviously, because like people aren't going to buy it from us unless they've heard of us. And like, okay, so we need to work on that for our future customers. But how do we get customers now? And it could be like, hey, why don't we expand accounts? Why don't we, people do our customers know all that we offer? Do they know that like we can do more for them? Like there's so many questions that need to be asked to make sure that you're maximizing the total lifetime value of your current customers and you're reducing churn, as well as creating opportunities for more discussions around future business. So it's not like an easy answer there, but really the answer comes back to like what's your brand strategy that's going to impact both sales and marketing. And like that has to be tied back to the overall objectives of the company, as that singular goal for the year.
No, that totally makes sense. I think it's interesting that these two teams conflict with each other so much because they have to work together so much.
Yeah, they silo themselves. But if you have like for anybody listening that has a company where like sales and marketing isn't communicating together, like there's contempt and they're not working on this, towards a common goal, then like the question is like, what is their motivation? And working with enterprise billion-dollar companies that have lots of layers of people, like that motivation is usually covering their ass. They don't want to cause problems. So they do things that's in their own best interest for self-preservation. So like they'll meagerly do things. They won't offer any ideas or suggestions that are big ideas or scary. They'll just do what's safe so they don't get noticed. So like be very aware of like people that are in sort of the personnel infrastructure. What is their motivation? Now, if everyone's motivation is to like win the game, right, this year, next year, and ongoing, then tying it back towards that common goal, you can have some really fruitful conversations. Like, what do you need to be successful, sales? What's a great lead look like? How are these leads we're generating now? Are these quality? And a lot of the companies I'm working with, like I'm there with the CEO, CFO, VP of sales, COO, and if I'm not running their marketing, like the director of marketing, and we're all talking, we're all discussing ideas and struggles and problems and opportunities. And then we go and take them to our respective teams and make sure that we're all working towards the same stuff.
Yeah, I think that's important. I think like also just having everybody within teams understanding, like you said, like if someone in sales doesn't even understand why brand awareness is important, then you need to make sure that even though they're not in marketing, they need to understand marketing.
Yeah,
Vice versa, right?
because they need it, right?
Yeah.
Like they need a strong brand presence. They need effective marketing to be in front of people. Because Seth Godin says everything is marketing, and I don't agree with him on everything because he's like a cult of personality guy. But I agree with him on that because everything we do sends a message, and that's what marketing is. It's sending the message, and what that message is, and how it makes people feel and react. That's brand. So like brand should, again, leading with brand, like that is helping us say the right thing to the right people in the right place, causing them to react in a way that is advantageous to our company. Now it's not manipulation, but it's influencing their decision-making. Why us over somebody else? Why now? Why at this price point? Why are we using these promotional tactics? Like all that stuff comes into like the thinking part the strategizing part of the business. And when you break down like chief executive to like a marketing leader, to a sales leader, to an operations leader, to a personnel leader, like if they're not all kind of working together and sharing ideas and insights and information and having like a real relationship, then they're all kind of working on their own sort of fiefdom. And if they're all working on their own fiefdom, then they're working in their own best interest. So like having somebody, particularly like me as an outsider, like I'll tell them what they need to hear and what they probably already know, but I'm not going to tell them what they want to hear. And like being that like outsider, unflappable, insightful person, we're like, listen, this is messed up. And like, it's either this is the problem, like we don't have a clear vision that's unifying everybody, or we have the wrong people. So let's start with clarifying the vision and making sure that everybody understands what we're trying to accomplish and how they can support that. And then we can evaluate whether they're the right person or not.
I think evaluating whether your work environment is allowing for the people to, I guess, develop themselves in the best way, or a space where they can talk about new ideas without having to worry, is also really important.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Like, right. You know, I always like to push into the culture like a license to fail. And, like making mistakes, being wrong, like that's the scientific method. And if we're not looking to science to kind of inspire the way we run our business and the way we make choices and the way we optimize and improve, then we're foolish because it's right there. It works. It's how we get these things to where we want them to be and they improve our lives and change the world and things like that. It wasn't the first time. So like I would always tell my people when I had a team and working in other organizations where I'm managing people, like, fail trying. If you fail by rushing or being lazy, like you're going to get crushed for that.
Yeah.
But if you're failing by trying something and it doesn't work, I love that so much because, wow, what an opportunity to get insights and learn something. We learn something that doesn't work. Because here's the thing, marketing is chaos. It's unpredictable. And people promise business leaders a predictable ROI. They're selling bullshit. And I don't like that. That's why I have my own company, because I'm like, this is what is this? And my second book is called Market Your Brand Like You Give a Shit. And it goes all into this. And I'm not going to get into the reckoning I'm trying to bring down on the industry, but that's part of it. It's part of like really what's your expectation to get out of marketing. Because you could run a campaign, right? You can run 30 campaigns a year and one worked. How do you know it worked? Well, sales went up. How do you know the other ones didn't influence that? How do you know that the other ones didn't work, but something else came up and influenced the buyer's decision or influenced the market? You don't know that. You don't have those answers. So you can't say that like marketing is black and white. Marketing is gray. Brand strategy is directing the gray. And like daily experiments and optimizations is how we get the progress. And when I talk about marketing, everyone wants to have these various metrics, and you brought up ROI and things like that, clicks, engagements, whatever, right? I'm sure it's important to see how many people watch this and how long they watched it for and what they did afterwards. Those are all important things. But what is the most important thing you want out of your marketing activities? I'll answer it. Progress, moving towards our goal. And if people sat down and actually said, what does progress look like to us? Then they'll be a lot more effective with their marketing and therefore a lot more effective with everything they're trying to do with their business.
Yeah, no, I actually, I think that mistakes, in any kind of capacity are going to guide you towards the correct answer.
Mhm.
So like, I don't think it's just in marketing. I think it's in a lot of things.
Yeah,
When you
everything.
make, yeah, and when you make a mistake or when something doesn't work out, at least you know that doesn't work.
Right.
Not doing something means you don't even know if it's going to work or not. You're just
True.
guessing, right?
Yep. Yeah.
And like you
Right.
said,
Yeah. And like you miss every shot you don't take,
yeah,
Wayne Gretzky
exactly.
said. And like take the shot, see what happens, learn from it.
Yeah,
It's
because
really that simple.
at least when you learn, you know, like, okay, this didn't work. I'm not going to do that anymore. Now I'm going to do this.
Or you
Um,
have surprises where you're like, holy shit, like it didn't work, but look at this
yeah,
information. Look at this result. And it's like, wow, because like eh, not to be airing of all my grievances, but like a lot of like marketing people, whether it's design or like tactics and technology, a lot of times what they're trying to do is get someone to say yes. They're trying to approve it, right? So like designing a website or rebranding or packaging or anything like that. Instead of like tying it back to the business goals and objectives, what are we trying to accomplish here? What's our brand? What are our values? What's our personality? What's best for the brand and the future customer? That question. Like if we're not saying it like this is why, this is what's best for our brand and our future customer. If you're not quantifying that based on uh, agreed upon parameters and standards, then you're just trying to get, Daniela, what do you think? Oh, I love it. Right. And like, that's a horrible thing to strive for
yeah,
because are you the ideal customer? Are you a buyer? Are you a decision maker?
yeah,
Are you like, you know, are you the brand standard? And like, so it's just going off whims, opinion, and ego. And like, you can't argue those things because they're right, because they're whims, opinion, and ego. So you can say, like, oh, well, my whim, opinion, or ego differs from you, but you're both right. But when you could simplify things and say, like, okay, this is what the brand's all about. This is what our customers care about. Here's are the problems we're solving. This is who we are. Okay. Like actually put those things into like like actionable statements and say like, yep, this is us right in here. That's how you're innovative. And when you're trying to be creative without parameters, you're just trying to guess. You're daydreaming. But when you're innovate, when you have that creativity with those parameters, that's where innovation happens. And really, like the difference is the brands and the leaders within those brands that understand that are the ones that everyone points at and says, we want to be like them.
yeah. No, I totally agree. And I think that that's a great note to end the podcast on because we are running out of time. But before we finish, if what we spoke about today resonated with anybody listening, if they want to work with you, they want to get to know you, the space is yours to tell them where they can find you.
Oh, so when's this coming out?
Um, we can talk about that after we film.
Okay.
Let me know.
So the reason, because I'm rebranding a little bit. So find me on LinkedIn. I'm dropping all kinds of knowledge on there. ThatBobbyG, that Bobby G. And and my website is properagency.com, but it'll redirect once we change it.
Okay, cool. Yeah, then I'll be adding the links to description. If the podcast is out when your rebrand is done, don't worry. I will. I'll make sure to add it. And thank you so much for being here, Bobby.
Thanks
Guys,
for having me. Thanks for listening.
no, it's good having you. Guys, please listen to the podcast, subscribe, comment, share, like the whole thing, and go find Bobby. Thank you so much for being here.
You've been listening to Fully Managed, brought to you by Penji. Check out the show notes to learn more about today's guest, and to learn more about Penji, the human-first creative subscription service, head over to penji.co. And by the way, if you're still listening, it would mean the absolute world to us if you were to share this podcast with a friend, and of course, subscribe.